Happy Thanksgiving. Wait, seriously? I've had this script on my hard drive since November. Anyway, you know Bingin' with Babish, right? That bald guy that makes food from the funny picture box and keeps ordinary sausage up at night screaming.
What more do they want?
Yeah, that guy. He's cooked a lot of food over the years, but not only are there several dishes he's never touched, there's entire franchises he's never dived into. So for this bonus would-be holiday video, I shall give 10 dishes that neither Babish nor Alvin have made, and source them from franchises they have not yet covered on the BCU. After all, anyone could come up with a list of stuff from SpongeBob, The Simpsons, Dragon Ball, etc. But this is probably going to be the only channel where there are recipes from Dead Rising and TruTV. However, we're not starting there. Let's start with a show I know his audience has been asking for.
I give you raspberry chocolate strudel doodles.
Chowder is low-key not a great choice for Babish's show, despite the cartoon's premise. Most of the food is either normal food with a very silly name, or just full-on abstract shapes that Chowder inhales. The former is rarely going to be the kind of thing Babish would go out of his way to make, unless he needs an excuse to do so, like with the deep dish pizza episode. And the latter is just something he prefers to not do in the first place, especially if it's magic food. That middle ground of unique but plausible dishes can be surprisingly scarce in Marzipan City. Enter these pastries. When removing the goofy naming scheme, they are effectively raspberry donuts with a chocolate glaze. Although the naming scheme implies something more aligned with a snickerdoodle. But hey, that just gives more things to do for the episode. First, he can make a show-accurate version that's just a raspberry pastry with a single chocolate dip. Although I imagine he would have to switch to chocolate icing if he wanted to recreate it visually. On the subject of visuals, he can then make an actual raspberry honey bun with a chocolate glaze, and then try to make something based on the naming convention and make a raspberry snickerdoodle, and see which of the three is better. Ah, great. Now I'm hungry, and I'm only one segment into the video.
Hey guys, what's cooking?
In the Mythbusters Thanksgiving special, which happened in season 13, celebrity chef Alton Brown joins them to test the idea of cooking an entire family Thanksgiving using the engine of a car. I am not suggesting Babish to recreate that part. Babish would be using a lot of time and resources just to redo what already happened. And given that Mythbusters is not a scripted show, but technically a reality show, that seems like kind of a waste. However, there are some specific details from the episode that trying to recreate in a kitchen would be interesting. First is the surprise casualty of their adventure, the gravy. It still tasted really good, but it was way too thin, so instead they served it as a soup. The idea for this would be twofold. One, deliberately overcooking gravy and seeing how good it can make a soup, and then comparing that to an actual soup that uses the same ingredients that went into said gravy. Second up is a single turkey leg that Alton shoved into the car, just in case everything went to hell in a handbasket. This could be a good way to show off some unconventional cooking techniques for a single heavy drumstick. And finally, just making those experimental pumpkin pies. That recipe was never actually disclosed, so showing people how to make pumpkin pie cupcakes would actually be pretty nice.
My savior! Here, I've been cooking. Taste this. What you think? Yummy, isn't it?
Ah, We Happy Few, one of my all-time favorite games. There's a lot of food from the game that can be made, but there's a reason most food tubers haven't done it. For those of you who don't know, this game takes place in a post-World War II English town known as Wellington Wells. They've long since stopped trading with other towns, and their food is now running out and the society is on the verge of collapse. The townsfolk would probably do something about it if they weren't all drugged out on happy pills to ignore and forget their shameful past. Yeah, this isn't a very pleasant game to talk about. And that extends to the food, as this will be our first foray into the nasty side of food recreation. First up is Spam. Known as victory meat or V-meat to the Wellies, it's one of, if not the only, consistent sources of protein in the town. If you're smart, you won't ask Mr. Cuddy where he gets it. It's also the perfect chance to learn how to make Spam from scratch. There's actually several videos going over this, my personal favorite being the Wolf Pit, but there would be that extra bit of entertainment in watching Babish recreate from scratch something he knows he doesn't really like. But at least Spam can be cooked and dressed up into something quite pleasant. The same can't exactly be said for the next one, the Chunky Stew. This is explicitly referenced to be made out of mushrooms and leaves, and the comment on how it's not runny at all implies there's a lot of it. But okay, even with that, you could say that's just that specific side quest version of it, And there are things like potatoes, carrots, and onions still growing in town, so a good stock can be made from it, and you might be able to put some of the pieces in it to make it better. But if you wanted to throw proper meat into it, Wellington Wells only has 2 options: rat and crow. There's also rat jerky that's said to taste like beef, but I don't know if that'd be a good idea to recreate. Getting onto something a little more pleasant though, there's Ollie's grog. While the exact recipe cannot be followed, as I don't think there's many legal ways to put a hallucinogen mushroom into alcohol and then encourage people to publicly recreate that, a honey scotch mixture turned into a grog does have some room for experimenting, and it could be a nice way to end an episode. Or at least be an excuse for Alvin to get drunk so he can forget everything he did.
I call it the Master Dog. They fortify and strengthen the heart and soul of everyone.
Most of Dead Rising's food are gameplay-driven mixed drinks, which aren't the best choice for a cooking recreation show. Plus, another Dead Rising YouTuber did actually make the mixed drinks in real life, and very few of them turned out even remotely good. Luckily, Dead Rising 3 features not only a very unique and realistic food item in the form of the Master Dog, but it even gives the exact ingredients used.
Smoked meat, habanero, delicately diced onion. Oh, and chili sauce, huh? Salt, pepper, bacon, more habaneros. Yes.
And this has more room for experimentation than you might think, as one Master Dog can be following the recipe logically, another can be pulling an ordinary sausage and mixing the ingredients with the meat into the casing.
Hey, Bimbish! Fight me, you bald-headed
And a third one can be finding a middle ground between them to see if there's a best way to make it. Watch as this turns out to be the episode where ordinary sausage finally crosses over, but since it's a video game, he'll be working with Alvin as the ultimate betrayal of Babish's trust, just as the Big Smoke order foreshadowed.
Spicy chowder and dumpling.
Are you sure about that?
This anime actually is ripe with foods for recreating. However, for this video's purposes, we'll be focusing on the episode Hot Shot Chef, also known by the Japanese name of A Spice Odyssey. It sees King Dedede and Kawasaki enter a restaurant war over spicy food. The initial dish is a classic case of 4Kids localization stupidity. They turned what was clearly meant to be spicy ramen into spicy chowder with dumplings on the side. Now, to be fair, and I didn't actually know this, but chowder with dumplings is a lot more common than I thought it was, so this isn't quite jelly donut levels of stupid, but you still see a guy eat chowder with chopsticks. But much like when Babish did the jelly donuts followed by the rice balls, it'd be nice to see if chowder with dumplings complements spice as well as ramen does. Well, I say Babish, Alvin would do it. Other recipes from this episode alone include hot pizza with spicy mustard. That doesn't sound nice. Dynamite dumplings, the heat-seeking burn burger, and atomic curry. The end of the episode gives something a little more unique. The Kirby sorbet. That's a total of 6 dishes from a single episode. The Meal Moocher is another episode with a lot of home-style meals to recreate, although really any episode that focuses on Chef Kawasaki will produce something for the BCU. Also, since this is an anime adaptation of a video game, would it be arcade with Alvin or anime with Alvin?
Oh, courage. My secret recipe for happy plums will make anything happy. Put a little sour cream in each, will you, Courage?
So, shockingly, the only time Babish has ever used plums is in the context of a pie. Beyond that, he rarely touches them for the show. But as far as food goes, happy plums are about as simple as they get. They're plums coated in vinegar, baked for an undisclosed amount of time, and then topped off with some sour cream. Some recipes online will add butter and brown sugar to the recipe before it gets baked, but otherwise it is a very straightforward cup recipe. After all, the only surefire way to know you've made them correctly is that eating them puts a smile on your face. Reminds me of the simplicity of Ned Flanders' hot chocolate, now that I think about it. Okay, so the Estus Flask isn't actually food. As a matter of fact, the Chosen Undead in the Dark Souls series is incapable of eating any food, lore-wise. No, the Estus Flask is actually just a bottle of fire that restores vitality to the undead. This ties into how bonfires restore health, it's why they refill empty Estus Flasks, and in general just ties into the thematic themes fire has in Dark Souls. So, here's how I imagine Alvin tackles this. first is spending way too much time, and probably money, trying to get a lit fire in a bottle for the sake of a thumbnail. This would be followed up with the idea that the Estes most real-world equivalent would be firewater, aka a really strong liqueur. Realistically, it'd be whiskey. Then he would make a joke about how he is wasting his time because you can go to the store and buy some fresh Estes flask right away, and he would start chugging some Sunny D, which could then result in making Sunny D from scratch. Then he'd have the idea of mixing the firewater with homemade Sunny D, and then he would remember that spicy orange juice is in fact a real thing, and after making some, he would then try making some spicy Sunny D. I have no idea if at any point in this hypothetical episode he would enjoy anything he consumed. But forcing yourself through pain is quite befitting for any recipe mimicking a FromSoft game.
Kids want mac and cheese? Serve the perfect portion that's sure to please.
I've made everybody's favorite Code Red Diabetes Bites. Come get these little swine pockets.
This is the most nostalgic entry on this list for me. My dad and I would always watch this show, back when it was known as The Smoking Gun Presents. While some may see this as not really being proper TV, I'd say it's no more of a stretch than Jon Stewart's humorous ramblings to justify pizza. And there is some legitimate variation and questions to be had with this one. First, can you make a perfect bacon bowl, or indeed even an adequate bacon bowl, without having to buy those stupid inside-out cupcake tins? And if so, are they actually worth getting? Second, how good are the recipes that were shown in the infomercial? And finally, is there anything special you can do with a bacon bowl? Like something that's actually better for using a bacon bowl over any other piece of edible quote-unquote cupware? I've always been curious about this, but even as a kid, never thought this would be a product worth getting. And this is coming from somebody who grew up in the age of the internet, where the punchline to most jokes was either Chuck Norris or bacon.
Mom sent me down to tell you boys it's time to give me a piece of pizza. Fudge anchovy, my favorite.
Ah, the classic, there is no way for this to be good food. Feels like it's been a while since Babish has actually tackled something like this, or at least it was back when I originally made this script. It's a shame, as between his inevitable disgust and the effort to make them at least halfway palatable, they tend to be some of his best episodes. A pizza with peanut butter, clams, and hot fudge is gonna be hilariously bad on its own. Adding that to pepperoni, garlic, onions, and anchovies will cause this pizza to speedrun a trip to the trash can. As for the Babish version, I actually have an idea of how that could work out. I don't know if it'd be great, but it would at least be edible. Think of a layered, square personal pizza. The idea is that it's one of those single slices that you would get back in elementary school, but with a stuffed crust handle. The layered part would be placing the ingredients in columns, allowing for the ingredients that taste well together, or at least don't ruin each other, to be placed right next to each other. Think back to the authentic version of the isotope dog from The Simpsons. I'd guess the first layer would be pepperoni, garlic, and onions. The next column having the anchovies and white clam meat, followed by the final layer of peanut butter with a hot fudge stuffed crust handle. If there is any way to make this Punchline pizza even remotely enjoyable, it'd probably be this. So, since I just recommended what could generously be described as pregnancy-craving pizza, something more wholesome would be nice. And the only thing more wholesome than the heavy is his sandwich. The actual recipe given in the trailer goes well beyond what is shown on the physical model in-game. And despite it not requiring any proper cooking, it's a fairly involved sandwich, as there's a decent amount of meal prep required to put it together, assuming everything is made fresh. It's also just one of 4 options in Heavy's lunchbox. The next one would be the buffalo steak sandwich, which is really just a raw slab of steak. So I'd instead recommend using this as a chance to make an actual buffalo steak sandwich. It'd be a lot more interesting to watch and, frankly, a lot safer to eat. Finally, there's the fish cake. Well, the original version is a chocolate bar, but Babish already made chocolate from scratch. So a fish cake would be more unique. Also, the real final option is actually the second banana, but that's literally just a banana. So unless the video ends with Alvin slowly eating a banana in front of Babish to remind him of what he will never enjoy again, it'd be a pretty simple ending to the Hoovie secondaries. As for those curious about the Scout secondaries, all of the sodas require radiation, and the less said about Mad Milk, the better. And there you go, 10 potential recipe ideas that would see Babish and Alvin travel outside of their usual franchises. Technically speaking, this isn't even the first time I've done this. but I doubt any of you knew about the blog I had a few years back. To give you an idea, I had that before I did my first Dead Rising tier list. On that note, this wasn't even meant to be my next video, but I went digging through my computer and I found this video script and it was already 85% complete. Figured I could finish it and edit it over the course of a day or two. Hope you enjoyed this break from my usual stuff. See you next time.